listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. I'm your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio today with my dad and co-host, Alex Urbina. And today we are going to be talking about shame-proof parenting, which happens to be the topic of our very special guest's book. And her name is Mercedes Samudio. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Mercedes. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much.
So we're really excited to have you on today. Mercedes is a parenting coach, and she's the author, like I said, of Shame-Proof Parenting. If we could, I would like to have a little introduction to see a little taste of what your book's about, and maybe we can, because we don't really have a topic. I want to talk about a little bit what goes on in your book and see maybe some of the things that you and my dad have in common as far as parenting and what the differences are and where we can find a happy medium.
Before she does that, I want to let you know, Mercedes, I really haven't talked to you, in length, but I wanted you to know what an incredible book that you have with an amazing insight. I mean, I was reading it and I kind of got overwhelmed with all the golden nuggets. I couldn't really put all the golden nuggets, and we could literally talk about your book probably for weeks. Because it had, no, seriously, it has some great insight, and what a beautiful journey that parents can embark on just by going down the road, and the beautiful pictures that you paint for parents and really helping support them in their journey. So I just wanted to start off by letting you know how much I really appreciate you sharing that book with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So tell us a little bit about why you wrote the book, and what's your message? Like what do you really want to let parents know that are hungry to really help raise healthy-minded kids?
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed in the parenting world is that we don't always talk about the shame that comes up once you decide to raise children. And I think that is something that is so integral to not just a parent's identity and how they see themselves in the world, but even in how they decide to execute some of the parenting strategies from these amazing parenting experts, like the Dan Siegels, the Dr. Shefali. These people have amazing ideas and amazing strategies. I think sometimes those strategies get overwhelmed by a parent's shame or a parent's lack of confidence. And so what I wanted to do with Shame-Proof Parenting is to really talk about really helping parents to understand how insidious shame can be, not just from yourself, because I think sometimes parents beat themselves up and are very hard on themselves, but also from the world at large who says, okay, human, you have a human that you've got to raise. You've got to put your humanness on the back burner and make sure this human is perfect. And I think that's such an impossible standard to ask other people to do, but parents are constantly bombarded with those type of messages.
Yeah, and as a committed conscious parent, always working on myself, I look back at the moment that I decided that I wanted to really put my best effort into raising my kids. There was a lot of things that I really had to look at and be willing to look at and honest with some of the shame that I could be carrying into my new commitment of parenting. And I really had to be mindful and aware of not projecting that shame into the parenting. And so, by reading your book, you really break down a lot of different ways to look at how we can bring that shame with us if we're not really aware of it. And you point out several different ways how it kind of can creep in if we're not really aware and looking at it.
Yes. And so I think one of the main things is this. Once you become a parent, you have to start right away. There is no, onboarding period. There is no probationary period, right? As soon as that person comes into your life, you are off to the races. And I think that we don't really give parents enough space to really get used to and get ready for this lifelong task of raising another human being. And so what I see a lot of people doing is they ignore their own stories. They don't want to talk anymore about maybe how they came into becoming a parent or how they chose to be a parent. And I also feel like a lot of times we try to adhere to these ideals about what it means to be a parent, especially in a Western society. And so we try to force ourselves into those ideals as opposed to doing, as you just said, Alex, which is taking stock of who am I and who do I want to commit to being. And I feel like we don't give parents that safe space to do any of that.
Yeah, and I think one of the big awareness that can come up as a parent that is committed to get ahead of their child, so to speak, one of the most inspirational things that I've discovered is when parents are willing to embark on a journey of interpersonal growth and healing and development and willing to tell themselves that they know nothing, therefore they can learn everything, and then go on that journey and then welcome the kid to embark on that journey with them.
Yes, yes. That's the huge part of it, and I love what you just shared, is that journey. I think so much of the time people ask parents to know what they're doing as opposed to saying to the parent, it's okay that you don't know. It's okay that both you and your child are experiencing new things together. And that's such a healthy space to be in, what you just shared, which is this idea of you guys get to do this together. You don't have to always know. You don't have to always have the answers. And I think that's such a freeing space to be in when we tell parents or give parents the permission to do that.
And what's interesting is that as I do these transformational trainings for teenagers in the capacity of a safe, loving environment where they trust me and my team and each other and the coaches, and they start revealing so honestly, what they basically are saying is, I already know my mom and dad aren't perfect anyways. I just wish that they would have the courage to own it. That's what they're saying in the training rooms.
Yes.
And if more parents realize that if their kids already know that you don't have all the answers and that you don't know it all, and if we just finally surrender to that, we could hook their heart and be willing to grow together and embark on that journey together.
I was going to say, I think when kids are young, parents think, okay, I have to be strong and I have to be tough and I have to, have everything together, know what I'm doing, and my kids need to depend on me. And then we get to a certain age, 6, 7, 8 years old, where we start realizing that our parents aren't perfect and everything that you just said, they don't know everything and that's okay with us.
Right.
But the parents never shift to that place. They stay in that place that they were when we were 3 years old and they needed to have everything done for us.
Right. And, I think that's what my book is kind of bridging that gap, because I believe in the work that I've done with my parents is that happens because we have such a world that's hell-bent on blaming parents for everything that goes wrong. And so when things don't go right in a child's life, the school blames the parents, the world blames the parents, the world is shaking their finger at the parent. And so I think on one end, parents are contending with how do I guide my child into healthy humanness, but they're dealing with so much unhealthiness from their own understandings of what their role is as a parent, as well as what other people have on them as what it means to be a parent. And so I think parents are constantly contending with, when do I get a chance to even say, this is who I am, this is how I want to show up for my child, and then get the space to say, for other people to say, yes, we give you permission. We say that's okay. We're okay with you figuring that out with your child.
I love that both you and I are pretty much sharing the same message in our books, where we're inviting the parents to believe that the journey of growing and healing yourself and being that model and the example is, it's kind of easier on the front end rather than trying to course correct on the back end. If we just had the courage and we are willing to surrender, the ego of trying to know it all and the the muscling the kids and the control style of parent, and just surrender to healing ourselves and developing and growing so that we're out in front of them leading the way and showing them rather than telling them. And one of the videos I saw you do not too long ago, and I kind of cherry picked something that you just brought out right in the beginning, and it was, you said the secret to raising healthy children is to take the time to be healthy yourself. And you said our children are watching us more than listening to what we tell them. And to me, that's what modeling is. Yes,
definitely. And I think that's so huge, because when you think about, okay, I want to raise a healthy human, right? We all know that, and I think most of the parents that you've worked with and the ones I've worked with, that's what they all say. I want my kids to be healthy. I want my kids to be independent. I want them to feel good about themselves. However, we don't model what that looks like for our kids. So we tell them, be good, be healthy, eat right, but we don't. We don't eat right. We don't take care of ourselves. We don't let ourselves fail and move forward. We don't do that for ourselves. So while we're saying be healthy to our kids, we're not doing it. So our kids are kind of in this state of, well, what is she really telling me? What is Dad really telling me? He's saying, okay, son, don't let other people get the better of you and don't let other people make you feel bad. But then Dad comes home from a day of being yelled at work, and he yells at us because he feels bad. You know, it's like, what are we really modeling for our kids when we're not taking stock of our own emotional and mental health, when we're not taking stock of our own physical health first, and then saying, okay, guys, this is how it looks. When you don't let people at your job get the better of you, you can come home and have game night because you know that that's at work. It's not about your kids or your spouse or your partner. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm just wondering, as you're sharing that and you talk about my clients or your clients or who we're working with, those people, to me, they have already seemed to have realized the value and have reached out for help. I'm still trying to figure out, how do we get this message to the ones that are still living in the illusion that everything's okay, that everything's fine? How do we reach those ones so that they're not getting to the place where their kids are 16 or 17 years old struggling with drug abuse, or where they're, you know, like my pet peeve is, like, I offer these powerful trainings and insight, you know, for a couple of dollars, you know, whether a couple of dollars or a couple $100 of preventative work in parenting, versus now, you know, leveraging $30,000-$40,000 on your home to put your kids into rehab to save their life. Like, how do we get to the parents that think that everything's okay because they're not seeing the symptoms right in front of them, but not realizing that underneath, inside your son or daughter, there's an empty void inside, and that they're crying inside saying, Mom, Dad, I need a connection with you. Mom, Dad, I need to have a relationship with you that's more healthier and that's deeper and has some meaning to it.
I think for me, I feel personally that the way we reach people is to really create a different society around parenting. I believe that outside of the conscious parenting, positive parenting kind of framework that you and I have, we still have a world that believes that by demonizing and shaming parents, we're going to get to the root of the problem. And so because every news headline you read says, where were the parents? What were the parents doing? How was the parents working? I remember reading an article a couple years ago where they had interviews with the mothers of the American-born men who were kind of committed to ISIS. And I remember seeing so much of the shame in those mothers' stories and recounts of, this is how I raised my son, and I don't know how he got from our upbringing and what we did for him and what we loved him with, how did he get to ISIS? And I think even in hearing those stories, you hear that there's still so much shaming that we do to our parents. Not just, I think, when we're looking at them and how they're raising their kids, I think we still ask parents to do it on their own. You say, Mom and Dad, that's your kid. You need to make sure he's okay. You need to make sure he's fine. And when we're realizing it, what we're doing is we're putting that impossible mindset on a human being. We're asking a one human being or two human beings to take on the whole task of creating a whole human. And I think we've really got to shift that. We've got to start going back to this idea of parenting and child raising as a village effort. It's not just mom and dad by themselves. It's everyone in the community. It's everyone seeing what's going on for this family and how do they need support. Not do they need advice, not do they need to be condemned, not do they need a slap on the hand, but does that mom need respite so she can even get her bearings about herself to commit back to herself and her child? Does this dad need a space to cry and to say, oh, it's so hard? Do we create these spaces in our community outside of just the positive parenting framework? Do we have spaces like that for our parents to say, I don't know what I'm doing, and to not have that comment be met with, well, you need to, well, you should have known, well, you need to read a book, to not do that to them anymore, but to say, it's okay. Thank you. Thank you for saying you don't know what you're doing. Thank you for saying I don't know how to connect to my kid, and giving them the space to explore what that looks like uniquely for them.
Absolutely, and that's why I love your book, because when you're reading the book, you can see your come from. You can see the context as you're writing it. You're very compassionate and non-judgmental, and you're not using words like you should. You're not making parents bad and wrong. In fact, you're actually creating an environment where you're acknowledging that they have all the tools already within them, and so you're more of an invitation. And that's what I really love about your message.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So in the book, you talk a little bit about the gimmicks, and I really love this because you're both you can. It's like you're on both sides. Giving no, really, you're giving the parents, like, why are the experts creating these gimmicks? And then in your book you actually write, the truth is that many, not all parents, parenting experts have to package their voice and message in a way that creates some kind of an urgency for you. And it's like, you know, those of us that want to help and want to make a difference, but in order to make the difference, we have to create some kind of urgency in you for you to at least take a deep, honest look at where you're at first, and then you have to decide whether you want support or you want to gain some more tools. But I love that how you kind of painted that picture of the psychology behind the experts that want to reach out and help the parents.
Yeah, and that came from when I did work with substance abuse. Adult substance abuse, so I worked in a residential facility, and the first step for all of the anonymous type meetings is to recognize that there's a problem. And so I think most of us as the experts or as the coaches or as the parenting people, we realize something is wrong in how our families and our children are being created and healed. And so we realized there was a problem. And I think we began to say, how do we help? What pieces all kind of go into what makes someone a parent and what makes someone connected to that parenting identity. And so I believe that once a parent taps into that, something isn't going well in my family. Something is amiss in my family. I love that we have so many different parenting experts out there who talk about different layers of parenting, because just like us as humans are different, every parent is going to look different. Every family is going to look different. So there are families who are going to read your book, Alex, and be like, yes, this was it. I never knew this. There are people who are going to read Dr. Trifali's book and be like, oh, my God, this was what we needed, and so on and so forth. And I think when a parent does exactly what you just said and realize, something's amiss here, I need to start somewhere. I need to start with some layer of knowledge and foundation to help move my family out of this. That's where the parenting gimmicks come from, right? This idea, do I need shame-proof parenting or do I need inspirational parenting? Do I need the conscious parenting or do I need the whole brain child parenting? What do I need right now? Interestingly enough, I think all of them work together really well, but I think just that first step that a parent takes is just saying, what do I need? And so I love that we have these, these kind of frameworks out there, so that first step that parent takes hopefully opens the door to them realizing, okay, there's so many other ways for me to create, if you will, my parenting manual, right? There's not going to be just one modality I'm going to use, but now that I've started out with, Alex's book, maybe I'll go into Dan Siegel's book, and now I'll go into so-and-so's book, and it opens this door to exploring what can I do to create a manual or a parenting manual for me and my child.
Yeah, I love that. It's the vision I'm getting is more like a marathon, and each expert is at the different mile mark. So one of us might be at the 3 mile mark, one's at the 7, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where you are at in that marathon journey. The question is are you willing to jump back in? So if you're going to jump in at mile 4, there's a parenting expert there on mile 4 ready to embrace you and help you get to 5. Or if you're on 12 and you want to get to 13 and so on. And and that's what I love most about this work is the question lies in is are you willing to jump back in or jump in for the first time and just get in there and start healing ourselves. One of the things in your book you wrote, you don't need gimmicks, you don't need parenting books. What you need is a healthy, honest relationship between yourself and your child. And I just thought that it was simply put right in front of your face that if we go back to remembering how important it is to create a deep, honest, healthy relationship, especially in communication with our kids, we can rehook their heart again. Now we have the trust, and then we can now be their greatest advocate.
Yes. And I think that's just, I feel like that's a human element. I think all of us as humans just need to reconnect back to ourselves and back to our relationships. So I think self-help books are always there to give us foundations and to give us strategies. Parenting books are always there to give us kind of psychology behind stuff and the strategies. But at the end of the day, if you just call everybody into the living room and say, let's just talk, guys. Let's just have a weekend where we don't go to Disneyland and we're not on our phones and we're not trying to get to and fro, practice and this. If we just sit and hang out with each other, you'll be surprised at how much you learn about your kids, about yourself, about your partner, about your co-parent, just by just saying, let's just sit and talk. Because I think families are so busy these days. Everyone's going here and there. Everyone's trying to, get things done. But I think if you take time just to say, okay, guys, Saturday, we're not going anywhere. We're just going to sit and we're going to figure out, how we're doing. Even if nothing's wrong, even if nothing, vexing the family right now, just to have family dinner. You'd be surprised how much conflict resolution happens over a family dinner, and you haven't even picked up a single parenting book. You just actually look at your kid and say, hey, how are you? And it's so simple, yet sometimes I think in the busyness of our world, we forget to do that.
I really like how you pointed that out, because I was going to say that one thing that obviously I love parenting books and self-help books. I think they're amazing. They're great guides, and especially when you need somewhere to start from. But I think what a lot of people do is they pick up the books and they read all the information. They have the knowledge, and they almost consider themselves their own parenting expert, but they don't implement it with their children, or they don't take the time to actually read the book and follow the steps, or kind of create it into whatever's going to work for their family. And I like what you guys said earlier about taking pieces from every book and kind of almost shaping it and making your own book. You like the things that are going to work for your own family. I
think you just gave me an idea for my next book. Maybe I'll end every chapter with, okay, put your book down and now go do it.
Yeah, there needs to be.
Go be it. Go be it with your kids.
Yes.
We have to take a quick break. We'll talk more after. Stay tuned for more of the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Drugs or alcohol abuse can tear a family apart. In Santa Clarita, just like everywhere else, it's an epidemic. The Way Out Recovery is here to help. Call them now at 296-4444 or visit them on the web at thewayoutrocoveryscv.com. The Way Out offers outpatient treatment for adolescents, adults, and family members. The Way Out is compassionate, caring, professional, and confidential. You and your family don't have to suffer any longer. Call the Way Out Recovery now, 296-4444, or visit thewayoutrocoveryscv.com and make an appointment. Asking for help is the first step.
Let's go inside the mind of a 10-year-old.
I should have worn earrings today.
Buckle up, Sarah.
Michaela's got the best earrings.
Sarah, buckle up.
I wish my name was Michaela.
We're not hitting the road until you buckle up, honey.
Oh yeah, seatbelt. I wonder if there's pizza at school today.
It can be tough getting through to kids, but it's your job to make sure they're wearing your seatbelts. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.
All-Star Sports Grills is the best place in town to catch a Dodger game on one of their 17 screens and choose a cold one from 23 different tap beers. All-Star Sports Grills prides itself on their fresh, made-to-order menu, including half-pound Angus burgers. Enjoy an All-Star comedy show the fourth Wednesday of the month. All-Star Sports has a pets-friendly and smoking patio. All-Star Sports Grills on Bouquet Canyon, north of Plum Canyon.
KHTS.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we have a very special guest, the author of the parent book, Shame-Proof Parenting. Her name is Mercedes Samudio. She's not on the line right now, but she's going to go ahead and give us a call back. But she is on the line right now. Hi, welcome back.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So before we went on the break, we were kind of talking about creating parents, I guess, creating their own kind of book for parenting that match with their family. And one of the last things that I wanted to say on that topic was I really like how, a lot of the when you go to the bookstore and you read a book and you see Shame-Proof Parenting or the Inspirational Parent or the Conscious Parent, whatever, when you see those book titles, something about it captures you, something grabs you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that book is the right book for you or it's not a good book because it doesn't capture your attention. I think every single book, even if it's one sentence, will have something that will affect you or change your life, or, it has the potential to do everything. And what I really like is, just reading your book, Dad, I can kind of see, I was almost forced to read it, even though I'm not a parent. But as I was reading it, as I read it and continue to read it, I see there's a lot of things that I pull not as a parent, just as a human being that I pull out of there that I can see in my relationship. And, there's parts in the book that I can see a parent wanting from their kid that we're not providing either. So, a lot of this show and a lot of the parenting books, people can read them and see them as, oh, you're bad and wrong. You should do this. You haven't done this. You need to take responsibility for your kid's life. People who are not very conscious can take it as blame. And
yes,
I almost sometimes reading it feel bad as the child, as a kid, thinking, wow, I'm not a conscious daughter. I'm not paying attention to how my parents feel. And, and even going a little bit off of your book, I have a little bit of shame that comes from the way that I've treated my parents over the years, or the way that I've let a lot of my insecurities come up and affect our relationship. So, just for the parents who are listening, your kids do feel bad. We do understand the role that we play. I think parents have more of a responsibility, and they have a harder time with being the one that has to take responsibility because they're the older one or they're the parent, So
they're the leader. But what I love about the concepts that Mercedes has in her book and the way that she explains it and paints the picture is she's opening up this possibility that none of us need to create the shame in the first place, and all it takes is one of us to be aware of that, to teach ourselves and the other person, and then introduce that concept into the relationship to where we are all operating from that same framework of let's not create the shame if it's not warranted, and then we don't have to keep creating it over and over again. Let's agree to disagree with each other, and let's learn to love each other in all of our faults and realize that we're all in a learning process and give each other a break, right?
Yeah, I want to say one thing first. I love that your daughter just shared that, because thank you, number one, for sharing that. And I'm sure the parents who listen really appreciate that, because I agree. I think there are times when our kids, because they're in their developmental stage of figuring out who they are as a human, a lot of the things that kids do can come off as really offensive or really disrespectful or really, a lot of different things. But what I've learned in working with my families, and even the families that I don't get to work with, is that we're all human. Right? We put these parent, child, teacher, coach, all these titles on ourselves and box us in to these ideals that we're supposed to be. But when I see my kids and I see my parents, I think you guys are just humans on the same journey of trying to figure out, how do I do this? How do I human? Right? How do I feel and not step on everyone else? How do I express myself and not silence someone else? And I think that if we can give our families the space to do that with each other, just to say, it doesn't matter what your role is, I see you. It doesn't matter that you're my child, I see you. It doesn't matter that you're my dad, I see you. I think it'll just kind of help reduce some of this shame, because we're not saying, oh, Dad, you're supposed to be the one who can handle me yelling at you. Well, he's a human too. So when he gets yelled at, that hurts. And vice versa, that, oh, you're my kid, you're supposed to understand when I yell at you, it means I love you. No, I'm a human. It doesn't matter what my role is. It hurts when I get yelled at. And I think if we can start doing that and teaching our families how to do that, we stop expecting everyone to adhere to an XYZ role, and we start looking at each other as other humans. This is another human being that I'm on this journey with.
Oh, you said the magic word, sawubona. I see you. I love that. In your book, you talk about parenting strategies, and you said the best parenting strategy is one you've had all along, and it's called intuition. And then you said that moment that the parent knows what their child needs was attention or love or
Yes.
connection
Yes.
or even the space to figure out who they are or be themselves. That's that little voice in our spirit that's always talking to us. The question is what volume do you have that intuition voice at? Most of us have it at a
Yes.
level 3, and then we have our brain voice or our ego at a level 9. And is drowning out that beautiful intuition that's always guiding us with all the answers that we need to be effective parents.
Yeah, I talk about that because I think the word intuition has kind of been commandeered by the woo-woo community, the New Age community.
I agree.
So a lot of people ignore it. They say, oh, I'm not that way. I don't believe in that stuff.
Right.
And they don't realize that intuition is something that we all have. It doesn't matter if you have a spiritual belief or not. Everyone has intuition. Everyone has that little thing that happens in the pit of your stomach when you're somewhere and you recognize something's amiss in your environment. And so I try to teach my parents that when you realize, and I haven't yet to meet a parent who hasn't realized what's going on with their kid, to take a step back. Don't go right into how do I fix it or what do I do to get my kid out of it. Take a step back and say, what is this? Right? So I'll give you an example. What ends up happening a lot with kids, with parents who have school-age kids, is the school will call. Your kid has been bad today. They got a yellow today. They were on red today, right? And so your intuition might tell you, oh, he didn't eat breakfast. Your intuition might say, oh, he's probably upset because his dad didn't come home last night. Oh, your intuition might tell you, I know exactly why my kid was on red today. But what does our society tell a parent to do? Right? To punish, to reprimand, to make sure that when he comes to school the next day, he's not on red anymore. And I think we need to give parents a little bit more space to go into what does it mean to know exactly why my kid may be misbehaving today? And do we have space to help our kid get through it? That tomorrow they better not be on red, but to say, you know what, if this week he's on red all week, or can we just get rid of the colors this week because, dad is in the hospital and he's really sick, so he might be a little off. Can we just give our families that space? And I feel like that, again, goes back to what I said earlier about that societal change, that idea that when we see people having a hard time, we don't continuously reinforce that idea of punishment, but we say, wow, no wonder you're having a bad day. No wonder you're on red today because you're having a hard time at home or because something might be going on with your family, and to give people the space to move through that without fear of being punished.
And you'll see that sometimes in certain schools where the principal will be a compassionate principal and is a little bit more evolved than most other administrators, and will understand that something might be going on at home, and they'll make that call to the parent, and they'll ask them, and they'll be really gentle with them and open up that possibility or plant that seed. However, if in that institution, if they're really unconscious and unaware and still operating from fear-based modeling, then they don't even tap into that part, and they're part of that problem rather than being part of the solution.
I love that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just to kind of combat that, which is then, again, I think continues to exacerbate the issue. So the school is not conscious. The school is saying, bring your kid back in tomorrow. He better not be on red. So that forces the parent to reprimand their kid and punish their kid, so that way the kid goes back to school the next day and is on green. And so we keep perpetuating those cycles.
Well, this is why more conscious parents are realizing either I need to find a different school that supports my kid and my parenting style in the way that I'm developing them, or maybe I just need to figure out how to homeschool my kids. It's a whole new trend that's happening.
I was going to say, I agree. I love that we brought the school topic up because I love bringing up my own experience of being in school and getting the red card and the yellow cards and all of
or get shirted because you wore something that's too revealing.
It's almost like we talk about this all the time, Dad, on this show is as a parent, if you're not being conscious, you're letting other people parent your kid. And I don't like personally, I didn't like being parented by my teachers. I didn't like being told I was dressed inappropriately by my male teachers or the male administrators, principals. I didn't like, getting red cards and feeling like trash when I got home almost. They have a way of not even using any words sometimes, just to bring you down as a kid. And I, as much as there's positives to the public school system and any school system, and there are negatives, I think that one of the things is you can send your kids anywhere and they could get a quality education. But if you're not picking up the slack at home, so like you said, if they they come home and they have a red card, you have a decision. Am I going to reprimand them, and are they going to go to school tomorrow and have to be good, or am I going to be compassionate and tell them it's okay? I'm not mad at you for getting a red card today.
Yeah,
You can get a red card for the rest of the week as long as you promise me that we're going to have an honest conversation, or we're going to figure this out together.
Yes, it's so needed what you just said, and I think again that's why. I don't know if you've seen my hashtag, the End Parent Shaming hashtag, and that's why it's so important that we give parents the permission to do what you just shared, which is when your kid comes home with a note from school, or when the school calls and leaves you a message, that you say just that. I'm not really worried about what the school thinks of you. Tell me what's going on with you. Tell me what happens in your classroom. Tell me what happens with the other kids. Tell me what's going on so we can help. Even if for the rest of the week the school calls me, I want to make sure that you're okay. I think if we can give more parents the space to do that, we'll have such a difference in these kids who commit suicide because of bullying, or these kids who hurt themselves because the teachers are mean, or they keep getting shirted and red cards. All this happens because I think we don't give families the space to say, I don't care what society says about my family and my kid. I care about what's happening to us. Right? And to give them that space, that we're not measuring ourselves based on red cards and notes home. We're measuring ourselves based on the compassion and the empathy that we have with each other and our family.
I love that. Beautifully said. Along with the parenting strategy that you talked about, that intuition, you also in your book talk about the real strategy lies in developing a relationship with your child, getting to know who you are and who they are, and then using that knowledge to set healthy limits that allow both you and your child to make mistakes, then learn from those mistakes, and then grow from those mistakes. Beautifully said, and painted in a way that it just gives me goosebumps to go, man, if I don't have that kind of relationship, I want that, and how do I create that?
I think this is a healthy place of when you go back to how do I raise a healthy human. So think about, I always ask my parents, what do you do to yourself when you make a mistake? And that's even when it's not about your parenting, but you go to work and you make a mistake, or you make a mistake in your romantic relationships, or you make a mistake, while you're out in the world. And I have so many parents kind of laugh at me when I ask that question, because they go, I'm not nice to myself. I beat myself up. I talk about myself. I don't lift myself back up. I guilt. I shame myself. And I say, if you're doing that to you, I know for a fact, without even judging you and saying if it's good or bad, that you do that to your kid when they make mistakes. And so I really help my parents commit to, if I make a mistake, if I say the wrong thing, if I don't do what I thought was appropriate, to go back and first repair yourself. Go back and say, wow, I really didn't mean to say that to Alex, right? I really didn't mean to say that to him. Let me apologize. Let me kind of deal with that. Because if you can start giving yourself compassion for your mistakes and your missteps, I know for a fact that it will kind of give you the space to do it for your kid. When your kid says, oh, I was mean to another kid at school, you won't go into them, oh, you know better and I taught you. You'll say, you know what, that happens sometimes. Let's talk about what happened between you and that kid to make you feel like you had to say that to them. And then let's figure out another way to deal with it next time, because you've given yourself that compassion to do it for yourself.
Now I'm going to be devil's advocate, because, I'm pretty good at doing that. I get in trouble. I get in trouble for it too sometimes, because when I go there, people have to look at themselves. And so
we hate it.
Yes.
So being devil's advocate, it would now force the parent to really look at themselves and be emotionally honest and have the courage to say, you know what, maybe I am stubborn. Maybe I do have some unresolved issues from my past or from my parents that's getting in the way. And that really takes, I think that first glance is the most challenging glance to really look at, because you really have to be willing to make that your starting point, is when you start to get real and start to get honest. I call it authentic. It's that moment where you just get real and honest with, all right, I know that I got these issues. Now from here, now I can start working on them and start discovering and growing from that place. But if we can't get honest with ourselves, then we're living in the illusion that everything's fine and it's my kid that needs the help. And that's why a lot of times I get people or parents that are calling me wanting me to coach their kids not realizing that I really need to be working with them. And so a lot of times I'll trick the parents where I'll take the kids on for a little while, and then I'll do 45 minutes with the kids and then 10 minutes with the parents until I've convinced the parents that they need to start with themselves. But a lot of times, it's challenging to work with parents that really don't want to be honest and look at themselves and acknowledge that.
And I'll reframe a little bit, and I'll kind of challenge a little bit of what you said, too. I think we also have to realize that by the time we become parents, we've developed so many defenses to protect ourselves, because by the time most of us become parents, I'm just being ballpark here, we're in our 20s, right? We're in our 30s, which means we've lived with this society for so long that we've learned how to hide. We've learned how to be inauthentic. And so by the time we become parents, if we haven't taken the time to heal ourselves and to heal and become aware of those survival skills that we have, those survival tactics, we bring it right into our parenting. And so what I do with my parents is I help them to identify the parts of themselves that they have used to survive up until now. Right? Some people might call them stubborn, but it's like the fact that you're so stubborn has helped you to survive, right? You survived that domestic violence relationship. You survived that childhood because you were so stubborn. And we ask, do you still need that? Do you need that to survive your parenting? Do you still need that to survive raising your kid? And I think when you put it in that package, when you put it in that way, it gives that parent a space to say, wow, you're right. I survived using my stubbornness. I survived using my violence and my anger. I survived using these maladaptive patterns, but now they're really getting in the way of how I'm responding to myself and my child. And I think that helps our parents really look at themselves in a healthy way, too, because they're saying, you're right. I used to yell and scream all the time, and that kept people away from me. That's how I was able to survive. However, my yelling and screaming right now is keeping my child away from me. And so do I still need that? Do I still need to be yelling in order to survive? Or do I need to rethink how do I survive now with a child who doesn't need me to yell at them as much?
And I think by you reframing it, you get parents to not look at themselves and see that being stubborn is bad and wrong. It was just a mechanism, a defense mechanism that they developed along the way, and so they can now look at it without feeling judged or bad and wrong.
Right.
And then now you can come in as the advocate, point that out to them, and then help them see that and have that breakthrough.
Right.
Yeah,
because here's the deal. They're going to have to do that for their kid, too. So when the school says your kid is so bad, they're going to have to talk to their kid that way and say, hey, what's making you feel that way at school? What's making you feel like you've got to talk back to the teacher? What's making you feel like you've got to fight these other kids? You know why they can do that? Because as this person who's given them the space, I've given them the space to look at behaviors as needs. Right? Your kid must be acting this way because they need something, not because they're just bad or they just hate school or they just want to defy adults. And so you really want to give parents that space first, because then they can give it to their kid without feeling like, oh, my God, my kid is so disrespectful. Oh, he's so bad. It's like, well, what does he need? Why is he doing that? Why is he talking back? You know what I mean?
And I love that you guys are bringing up the idea that some of those things like being stubborn and all those little parenting, not even parenting, just personal things that we do as human beings, those things are not bad. I think sometimes in the context they might be bad. So it might, not always be the best idea to be stubborn or to yell at your kids or whatever. But sometimes being stubborn is good. Like at work, you got to be, strong. You got to be hard-headed. You have to be a force, or else no one's going to take you seriously. So there's times where all of the things that we think are bad are really not. And to me, it's interesting. I almost was getting kind of emotional when you were talking, because I was imagining all the times that I beat myself up and I didn't have compassion for myself, and I said, why did you do that? Why did you yell at them? Or why couldn't you just let it go? And I beat myself up in the question. But I realized that if I wasn't that way at work or in other relationships, I wouldn't have survived, and I wouldn't get what I needed. And when it was time to be loving and compassionate in my relationships, that came out. And I'm getting a little emotional talking about it now, because I'm just really identifying it with it, and calling myself out and acknowledging that there's things that for me, not even as a parent, I can see just in my regular relationships that it almost scares me now to be a parent.
But it's beautiful because you're being honest. And in that honesty and calling yourself in front of everybody is the awareness that you need right now to realize that it might not be as effective for what relationship you want to get into.
Right.
So,
And until you said that right now, until you brought up, the word survival, I never realized that if it wasn't for those things, then I wouldn't be strong, or I wouldn't be, so, and realizing that I don't need to count them as bad and wrong. I just don't need them right now in that specific moment.
It's just like the ego. The ego is designed to protect us and keep us safe in the real world. And it's designed like that to help support us, and to really benefit us, so that we can keep living day by day. However, a lot of times ego doesn't support us in relationships. So you got to learn. You got to learn when to tell ego, "Hey, I'm going to go visit with my mom right now, and we're going to have a beautiful conversation at lunch. Why don't you sit out here on the bench while I go and sit with my mom and give her my heart?" So you got to just learn what tools are effective in certain situations, because the one tool is not a fix-all tool. It can actually destroy some of the things that you're intended to.
Yeah, I agree. I love that insight. I love the conversation. Unfortunately, we have to take a quick break, but we'll get back to it right after the break. Stay tuned for more of The Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Daily Imprints is the premier one-stop shop for custom embroidery, screen printing, and promotional products in the Santa Clarita Valley. Owners Joe and Dana have provided KHTS with quality embroidered company shirts for over 3 years. If it's new business cards or promotional products you need to enhance your image, Daily Imprints is the choice for you. Located on Lyons Avenue, stop by or call today, 661-678-0508.
Don and Gino here. So we know you want to have fun learning about real estate and finance. You're going to want to tune in this Saturday, 9 a.m. to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show right here on your hometown station. Hot topics, as always, guiding you to personal and financial wellness. And that's right, you don't want to miss it. So again, this Saturday, 9 a.m., and then we replay it online Sunday, 9 a.m., Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. right here on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show. Join us.
The Santa Clarita Artists Association has a new gallery in downtown Newhall on 6th Street between Main and Railroad, right across from the Canyon Theater Guild. The gallery features our members' paintings, sculptures, and one-of-a-kind handcrafted gift items. Whether you're an art lover, buyer, or an artist wishing to join, visit our website at santaclaritaartist.org, come to our free monthly meetings at Barnes & Noble, or stop by the gallery. For upcoming events and exhibits, check us out at santaclaritaartist.org. We make visual art visible.
Santa Clarita's hometown station, KHTS.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we are talking to Mercedes Samudio. She's a parenting coach and the author of the book Shame-Proof Parenting. Before we went on the break, we were kind of talking about some of the topics about intuition, I believe, and
all kinds of goodies, man. Like
I'm really trying to get the grip.
Like literally, that's like a branch that just keeps spreading new branches. Mercedes, one of the things that I wanted to touch on in your book, you talk about tough love, which I really absolutely love, and you talk about how some of us parents, we have that need to toughen our children up. And for me, growing up in a Hispanic family and, with that macho uncle or dad that every time I cried, it was, they'd look over and give you that look like, what are you crying about? And we have this belief system that says that we got to be strong, and the strong means to not show our affections. And one of my biggest breakthroughs, my biggest conscious breakthroughs, was realizing how truly vulnerable I am as a 23-year-old man, being courageous enough to cry and feel my feelings regardless of what people thought about me. So talk to us a little bit about that tough love and that neediness to kind of toughen up our children, and how it backfires on us, or can backfire on us.
So I'll ask this because this is your show, and I want to make sure that I'm within the parameters. You mentioned your cultural background, and so can I dip into that a little bit?
Absolutely,
as I talk about
for sure.
So I think it's really important that sometimes we realize that a lot of the strategies that are given to us, self-help strategies, parenting strategies, relationship strategies, might come from a more majority kind of culture, a more European culture, and sometimes they miss the cultural elements that make parenting and having relationships so salient for us. And so as a Black woman, as someone who comes from an African-American culture, I understand why tough love happens in some of our cultures, where it comes from. And so I think for me, it's not so much about saying, let's get rid of it because conscious parenting says this, because shame-proof parenting says this. But going back to what I said is, why is this mom teaching her son to be so tough? Why is this dad teaching his daughter to be so tough? And I think if you look at things culturally, there's a reason why certain cultures ask their kids to be tough. There's a certain reason why certain cultures might push at their kids a little bit more. And what I say to those families is that in your teachings about toughness and strength, you also allow there to be space for this kid to find respite. I think one of the things that happens in cultural families is that we don't teach, along with being tough, how to find respite. So while you want to teach your Black son to be tough in a world that it might hurt him, you also want to teach him the skills to look into his world and find respite. And so that's something that I think is really important when we look at things culturally, when we put a cultural lens on how we parent. Yes, we can teach our kids to be strong. Yes, we can teach our kids to be tough in a world that may not always treat them with respect, but we also need to give them the tools to say, where do I find respite when I'm tired of being an advocate, when I'm too tired to keep fighting that good fight, when I can't go to another march, when I can't keep fighting, where do I find respite? We also, as parents, need to teach our children where to find support and where to go lay our heads and cry or be tired or just say, I need a break. And so I think both need to be taught at the same time.
Yeah, one of the golden nuggets that you talk about when it comes to this topic, and you say where it could backfire, is if your child is looking to you for emotional stability and assurance, and you turn it off to teach a lesson, they actually don't learn that they need to harden up. What they learn is that they're not worthy of obtaining that emotional assurance from you. And it was just beautifully written, and it jumped out of the page at me, and it just grabbed my throat like, oh, I need to share this because it was beautifully said. Yeah,
and I feel like both kind of ideas work the same, is that we do want to teach our kids tough love. So I get it. I get why parents do it, but we also need to, like I said, teach our kids how to find support. I saw a post this morning or just recently on social media, and in the post it said, needy is so outdated, right? We need to stop teaching people how to be like that neediness is bad when we all need something. It's not weak to say, I need you, mom. I need you, dad. It's not weak to say, I need, to have some friends, or I need to have a romantic relationship. We just need to teach our kids what it looks like to be strong and what it looks like to be needing of support and respite. So I think both have a space in how we teach our children.
I love that. We need to wrap up, and I want people to go get your book. It's called Shame-Proof Parenting. Go right now to Amazon.com and grab yourself a copy of that book. All books on that journey, that marathon, are at different levels. You need to grab them. They all support each other. Mercedes, tell us a little bit about how to get a hold of you. I know you're a parenting coach and you're out to support parents. How do we get a hold of you?
So the best way is to find me at shameproofparenting.com, and there you can find links to my book, my blog, my YouTube show, and all my social media links.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mercedes, for taking the time to talk to us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on The Inspirational Parent. That's all the time we have, but we're here every Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. right here on your hometown station, KHTS.